So, I want to focus for the first really half of this show on just what's happening in the market. I've got a bunch of stats, a big stack of paperwork, because there's no way I could remember all of this. But I want to help you guys better understand what's happening in different areas of Charleston as it relates to the number of homes for sale. How many homes are we putting under contract and closing? How fast are we putting them under contract? What's the difference between the asking price and the sales price? What's that doing to the overall sales price? What does inventory look like in general? And I also want to split that up into price ranges, 0 to 250,000, 250 to $500,000, $500,000 to $1 million, and then $1 million to $5 million. And you'll see some really interesting trends as I go through this data. And so bear with me a little bit on that. And I'll, of course, add some context and tell some stories in between. So it's not me just reading off a bunch of numbers. But I'll just tell you that our team this year has been way busier than I thought we were going to be, especially over the last 90 days. I was looking at our own stats, and I just want to share this first. The average days on market in our area right now is about 6 to 7 weeks. It's really about 7 weeks, depending upon the price range, of course. As the price range goes up, the days on market goes up. Our average days on market for properties that we have listed and sold so far this year, of which there are about 4 dozen, sellers that we've represented and homes that we've sold, our average days on market is 7 days. And so we're going to talk in the tail end of this program about how we're accomplishing that. What is it that we're doing from a marketing perspective? How are we differentiating ourselves from the competition, from the other listings that are on the market that of course, our sellers compete with? And then what are we doing behind the scenes to create more interest and urgency and ultimately offers that get accepted on our property? So we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But I want to just tell you that the stats that I'm about to read, and again, please bear with me on this, but I want to give you guys a better understanding of what's happening in the market in different price ranges first, and then we'll hit on the different areas. Because when you hear people talk about stats and you read things online, it's all in generalities. And the thing about Charleston, especially Charleston, is that we have a bunch of different types of properties, a very wide range of sales prices, and all of those different areas and price ranges have their own independent group of statistics and trends within it. And so you'll see as the price ranges increase that, things get a little tougher for sellers of multi-million-dollar properties. But let's just start first with the properties up to $250,000. And what I did here, and I'm a stats guy. If you've listened to my show, you know that I love my stats. I love helping you guys better understand the trends in the market. And so when I look at the price ranges in the Charleston Tri-County area up to $250,000, what I wanted to do is I wanted to compare last month, May, and then the average of the first 6 months of this year to 2017 and to 2015. Let's just see how far we've come and what's kind of developed over time. So when you look at the properties up to $250,000, last month we had 895 properties available for sale. In 2017, we had almost 1,700, and in 2015, we had over 2,700 properties available for sale. So the overall difference in homes available for sale up to $250,000 from 3 years ago is down 46%, and from 5 years ago is down almost 70%. I mean, that is a huge reduction in the number of homes that are available for sale in a fairly short amount of time. And so, of course, then we look at, all right, well, are people actually purchasing these homes? Are they actually closing on these contracts that they put on these properties? And I'll tell you that the number of pending contracts was 692 last month versus 770 in 2017. But you have to remember that there were almost 1,000 more properties available. And so what happens here is as we look at inventory and then we look at our absorption rate, how quickly we're putting these homes under contract and how often we're putting these homes under contract, we come up with something called month supply of inventory. It's really how we measure the health of a real estate market. It helps us answer whether we're in a buyer's market, a normal market, or a seller's market. Obviously, the lower the month supply of inventory, the more a seller's market we're in. And of course, when that happens, it drives prices up. People are fighting over less properties, which has been happening for years, by the way. You think back to 2009 through 2011, 2012, even parts of 2013. The buyer had the ability to say, hey, if you don't take my offer, then I'm just going to go down the street to the other properties that are fairly similar and offer them the same. And I'm sure one of them will take it. Whereas now, it's just not that way. Buyers don't have that luxury. Of course, buyers still are and always are going to only pay what they want to pay for a property based on what they believe it's worth, their perception of value. But when we look at the month supply of inventory, it's down 30% from 3 years ago, and it's down 60% from 5 years ago. And so, of course, that then affects the price per square foot or the value of the real estate. And over the past 3 years, it's been up 20%. Over a 5-year period, it's been up 35%. So you're seeing, and in many of these categories, you're seeing properties appreciating at fairly rapid rates. And I'll tell you what's really working really well for us right now. I'm going to take a quick sidebar, like I said I would, as we kind of continue to talk about this data. What's working really well for us right now is having our asking price, especially when we first hit the market, very closely match what we believe the home will sell for. In those 48 homes that we've sold so far this year, we have really pushed fairly hard with the sellers to hit the market at a more realistic asking price. Because for years and years and years, especially as more agents have gotten into this business, we've got over 7,000 agents in our market. And as inventory reduces, and we've talked about this on this show before, but as there are less homes available to list by real estate agents and more real estate agents constantly entering the market, it creates an opportunity for agents to essentially tell the seller what they want to hear just so they can get a listing. And I'll just tell you from my perspective that I love the fact that we're selling homes in a week on average, and the vast majority of our properties are getting multiple offers. And we sold a home for $1.25 million. We sold it for full asking price in 41 days. It was previously on the market for 3 years with a bunch of different agents. And it's not like we made this drastic price drop. We reduced it a little bit, not a lot. And then boom, we had all these showings, all this interest, and then an offer that ended up being full price. And so what's working really well for us is just shortening that distance between the initial asking price and what we believe the ultimate sales price will be. And that's what's creating bidding wars. That's what's causing buyers to fight amongst one another and then ultimately pay top dollar for the property. So, that's not a new strategy, but it's new in that most agents are still going to tell you to overprice the property by, 10+% in many instances, just so that they can have you feel good about that amount that you're entering the market at, when in reality, they know that in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5, 6 weeks, they're going to have a conversation with you about reducing the price because it's just not going to sell for that amount. And so that's just one of the many things we're doing right now to help people actually sell their property, sell it quickly and sell it for top dollar, is to just become more realistic about how much we're going to ask for the house, because people are watching the market like a hawk right now. There's just not a lot out there for sale. And so you have all these buyers sitting on the sideline, stalking these websites, waiting for new inventory to hit the market, or waiting for their agent to call them or send them an email saying, hey, here's a new listing that fits your search criteria. And then if it's priced well, it's marketed well, it's in good condition, you get this flood of activity, and then boom, you get an offer, and in many instances, multiple offers. But anyways, that's what's happening in the price range up to $250,000. Now, between $250,000 and $500,000, last month, we put more homes under contract than at any other month in the past 5 years. We put 1,108 properties under contract in Charleston between $250,000 and $500,000. Who would have thought that would have happened in the middle of a pandemic? But part of the reason for that is if you look at the inventory has frankly remained fairly constant. Last month we had 1,858 homes for sale. In 2017, we had 2,100. In 2015, we had 1,870. So there really hasn't been much fluctuation there in the number of properties available for sale. But here's what's interesting. In 2020, May of last month, we put over 1,100 homes under contract. In 2017, we put 637. And in 2015, we put 531. We have literally doubled the number of homes we put under contract in that price range over a 5-year period, with the inventory essentially staying the same. And so what's happening is, of course, the month's supply of inventory is getting absorbed faster than we can put new inventory on the market. And new construction is trying, but there's so much of a lag time there that we can't gain any ground on inventory to keep up with demand. And so our month supply of inventory is at 2.6 months right now. That is an extreme seller's market. In 2017, it was 4 months. In 2015, it was 5 months. I mean, it's been that way for a while. But when we look at the price per square foot increase, we went from, $152 per square foot last month to $153 in 2017, $147 in 2015. So there hasn't been a huge change in price per square foot, but it's just too tough to look at the average sales price because when you're looking at an average sales price in a predetermined price range, the statistic doesn't really matter all that much. But if you look at each individual area of Charleston and the homes in those areas, it's very easy to see that the average sales price is certainly more than it was 3 years ago and absolutely more than it was 5 years ago. And we're selling these properties on average in 50 days. That's why, we're selling them on my team in an average of 7 days. But it's also because of, one of the things I mentioned, which is pricing the property accordingly. Don't go with the crowd of people that just always overprice the property thinking that they're, baking in a certain percentage for negotiations. If you take control of the situation and that your home is worth very close to what you're asking, then that's what gets buyers to fight over it. If we look at the $500,000 to $1 million price range, again, May of last month, we put more homes under contract than in any other month in the past 5 years, which is incredible. Again, inventory has stayed relatively consistent. The month supply of inventory is at 5.4 months right now. 3 years ago it was at 7.5, and then 2015 it was at 9 months supply of inventory. And really anything above, say around 8 months supply of inventory is actually a buyer's market. So in 2015 it was a buyer's market. Now it's of course a seller's market. And if you look at the percentage change between 2017 and 2020, it's stayed fairly consistent. We were at $236 a square foot last month. We were at $247 a square foot in 2017 and $226 back in 2015. But again, a lot of activity out there. You're going to see in some of these instances, again, as you look at the areas, the neighborhoods, the homes within certain sections of neighborhoods, those prices are going up. There's no doubt about it. And then finally, the $1 million to $5 million market. Now, this is a market it's a very specialty market. And what has changed, especially over the last 90 days, is that people have really, you can quantify the difference between something like a $250,000 and $500,000 home and a $1 to $5 million home, in that as we go up in price range, we move away from a needs-based search to more of a wants-based search. Nobody needs a 6,000, 7,000 square foot home. Nobody needs to spend $4 million on a property when they could get something relatively similar, maybe with a few less features and maybe not as great of a location, for $2 million or 1.8. So those are the things that people are considering right now. And of course, if you look at the types of people that are buying luxury properties, a lot of them want things to stabilize at work, at home, their own finances before they go and write large checks for real estate, unless they're fairly well financially insulated, in which case investing in real estate is and always will be a great class to invest money in. And we're seeing that not just on a personal level, but on a corporate level as well, as people start to diversify their portfolios. And, a lot of people have always been focused on multifamily for years and years and years, but I think they're going to start looking more at luxury rentals, beach rentals, things like that, just to diversify their portfolio a little bit. But again, in May, for the $1 million to $5 million market, we put more homes under contract than in any other month in the past 5 years. We put 100 homes under contract. In 2017, we put 73, and in 2015, we put 55. And inventory has stayed relatively the same. There's only been a 1% difference between what was available, number of homes for sale in 2017 versus 2020. And so if you look at the price per square foot, that's where things get a little interesting for the luxury market. That's down a fairly decent amount. It's actually down 4% over a 3-year period and down 7% from a 5-year period. Again, different properties, different areas, different locations are going to have different sets of statistics, but by and large, those properties and the price per square foot have gone down just a little bit. And when we look at the supply, the overall month supply of inventory, that's down 20% from a 3-year period and down 40% from a 5-year period. So again, just less options. It's at least in this price range, it's keeping prices fairly consistent. But what I find in this price range more often than in any other price range is a gross percentage higher in terms of the difference between the asking price and the sales price. A lot of those properties are overpriced, and they've been on the market for years and years and years in some instances, and they just need to recalibrate, they need to refocus, they potentially need to rehire, and strategize on how to get that property sold effectively, because obviously what they're doing isn't working. So when we come back, I want to break down some of these different statistics by area. So depending upon where you live, you're going to hear what's going on in your neck of the woods. All that and more as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to me to learn about what's going on in your area, what your home is worth, what the buying opportunities look like in the areas and price ranges you're interested in, then feel free to give me a call, 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or visit us online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA.